Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak On It. I am your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to the guy who allows me to come to you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody doing out there? 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. That's what we do here every Saturday morning on the Speak On It show. Oh, how y'all doing out there, man? I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. It's another day. Waking up on the side of the living. I feel good. Let's go and get these filmed out. rwcoolins.com is the website, and you can go to all social media platforms. RW Coolins on all social media platforms. We're broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube this morning, like we always do every Saturday morning. And hey, subscribe, share, and subscribe. That's all I'm going to say this morning. That's all I'm going to say. 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is say what you mean what you say. We come in as friends. As friends, we leave as family. That's what we do here on the Speak On It show. Michelle Long, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in this morning. I had a good week, y'all. I had a good week. I hope you did too. I had a good week. Weather kind of topsy-turvy all over the United States of America, but we're going to get through this because I know out here on the West Coast, we're sitting here, we're enjoying this 50s and 60-degree weather. But in the back of our mind, we know them 110s and 120s is coming. So we're trying to prepare ourselves and enjoy it. So hopefully anybody that was affected by the hurricanes and the snow and all that, hopefully you made it through safely with no issues. And for those that didn't, let's send our prayers out to them and make sure and pray that they make it through whatever they may be going through. Today, it's Unscripted Saturday, baby. Unscripted. This is what we do here on the Speak On the Show. I try to give y'all some notes and then we go off on a little, I won't say a tirade. I won't say a rant, but we go off on and explore. We explore some other things behind what is being said in the news. So that's what we're going to do this morning. Y'all have to excuse me because my allergies are kicking. Bear with me. All right, let's get into this. So this week, and I don't know where I want to start with this. I don't know where I want to start with this as far as the stories I got. But I think I want to start with this one. It's a feel-good story. Let's start off with a feel-good story, all right? So this week, nearly 60 years. Oh, what's going on here? Hold on, y'all. Let's do this real quick because I need to adjust something. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Okay, I'm good now. All right, we're gonna start off with this good feel good story this morning. I don't know why I'm tongue tied. I don't know what's going on. It's just one of them mornings. Brian Hoodie, good morning. Let me get my bearings, man. Good morning, Brian Hoodie. How you doing this morning? Appreciate your support. So this feel good story this morning has been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming for this story, for this recognition, for this man. Colonel Paris Davis, retired Colonel Paris Davis, nearly 60 years after he was first recommended for the nation's highest award for bravery during the Vietnam War, retired Colonel Paris Davis, one of the first Black officers to lead a special forces team in combat, did receive the prestigious Medal of Honor on Friday. This is Colonel Paris Davis back when he was in Vietnam. He did training with Viet Cong, over there when he was there and everything. But this was a long time in the making. And it says the overdue recognition of the 83-year-old Virginia resident comes after his recommendation for the medal was lost, resubmitted, and then lost again. Let me repeat that. It was his recommendation was lost, resubmitted, and then lost again. It wasn't until 2016, half a century after Davis risked his life to save some of his men by fighting off the North Vietnamese, that a volunteer group of advocates painstakingly recreated and resubmitted the paperwork. Some of Davis's supporters believe racism was to blame, but Davis doesn't dwell on it. He said he doesn't know why it has taken decades for his heroism to be recognized. Right now, I'm overwhelmed, he told the Associated Press in an interview the day before he attends a White House ceremony where President Joe Biden will hang the blue ribbon holding the Medal of Honor around Davis's neck. When you're fighting, you're not thinking about this moment, Davis said. You're just trying to get through that moment. That moment lasted nearly 19 hours and stretched over 2 days in mid-June of 1965. Davis, who was then a captain and commander with the 5th Special Forces Group, engaged in nearly continuous combat during a pre-dawn raid on North Vietnamese army camp in the village of Bong Son in Binh Dinh province. He led the charge against the enemy, called for precision artillery fire, engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the North Vietnamese, and thwarted the capture of 3 American soldiers, all while suffering multiple wounds from gunshots and grenade fragments. Davis used his pinky finger to fire his rifle after his hand was shattered by an enemy grenade, according to reports. Davis repeatedly sprinted into an open rice paddy to rescue each member of his team, according to the Army Times. His entire team survived. Davis refused to leave the battlefield until his men were safely removed. Now, see, these are the stories of many men of color who went to fight in these wars for a country that really didn't feel the same about them at the time. And I want to go back to what Mr. Davis said. He said, right now I'm overwhelmed. When the people brought up the fact that they thought it was racism or anything like that, he said, not thinking about that. Not thinking about that. Because at the time when he was in it, he was in it. And he decided to serve his country because he believed in the country. But for it to get lost, resubmitted, lost again, and then finally, after all this time, be submitted, you have to start. You got to question a little bit, and we don't want to speculate too much, because this is a great honor that he was bestowed upon him at this later date. He's a native of Cleveland, retired in 1985 at the rank of colonel, and now lives in Alexandria, Virginia, just outside of Washington. Biden called him several weeks ago to deliver the news. He compares receiving the medal to getting the long anticipated ice cream cone, and says the wait in no way lessens the honor. It's just the antithesis of that. It heightens the thing. If you got to wait that long, it's like someone promised you an ice cream cone. You know what it looks like, what it smells like. You just haven't licked it. Let me read that one more time. It heightens the thing. If you got to wait that long, it's like someone promised you an ice cream cone. You know what it looks like, what it smells like. You just haven't licked it. Colonel Paris Davis. This is him yesterday, receiving the Medal of Honor from Joe Biden at the White House for his heroism back in 1965. There's a lot of things that can be said about Colonel Davis, and not just Colonel Davis, but many, many others who served during the time when civil rights, the right to serve, the rights of what was received when you came back, being recognized for what you did. And a lot of times what we realize is, and I'll speak for most of the people that I know that served in the military, we don't do the things we do when we're active duty for the recognition. Let's just clear that up right now. What Colonel Paris did, let me call him by his name, what Colonel Paris did, and what many people did who served along with me, who served during my time, served before my time, we don't do the things we do when we're wearing that uniform for the recognition. We do it simply because we signed up, and this is what we signed up for, and this is what we choose to do. However, I'll put this caveat on there. However, the recognition that you may receive for what you've done at a certain time, during a certain instance, during whatever may happen during your time in the service, the recognition plays a part in the fact of the pride that comes along with it, to know that you did something that other people recognize as being out of the ordinary or extraordinary during that time, during that event. I'll say it this way. We all want recognition somehow, some way. But when we do things, and during his time, Colonel Paris, there was many, many, many people who were recognized for what they did. What happens is, and we look back, there's certain times where someone of color may have done something just as extraordinary as someone of non-color, but the one of color got swept by the wayside. Nobody took the time to write the recommendation, the declaration, or however you want to put it. And I say this because not only Colonel Paris has dealt with this, but there's been many, many, many other people of color who have dealt with this. There's been many people that serve with me that I've talked to that have served this country and have done extraordinary things and didn't get the recognition they should have gotten. I say all that to mean that to say in this terms of recognition for some folks may not seem that they need it. However, there's times that recognition can go a long way. It can change the direction of someone's career. It can change the direction of someone's thinking on how they feel about the job they're doing, so on and so forth. Sometimes that encouragement, those words of encouragement, that recognition, just a thank you for doing what you do, any of those things you can think about, even in your own relationships, not just dealing with the military and your job you're in, but in your in recognizing your partner, your friends, your family, and letting them know that somehow, some way, you want to recognize them for what they bring to you and what they do for you on an everyday basis. Sometimes we overlook the fact of recognizing those who are close to us, recognizing those who have done something for us, recognizing those who are in our lives that make an impact. And I don't want to go off on that because I want to make sure we recognize Colonel Paris and what he did and now receiving that Medal of Honor. But it can bleed into all of us. All of us have the propensity to be able to take the time to recognize someone who does great things in your life, someone who's in your life, and someone who has done something that you feel needs recognition. You'll be surprised of how far and how grateful people can be when they get the recognition that you don't think they may want, that you may think they don't want. However, recognizing them for doing something that is extraordinary or something that is just out of the sorts or something that just needs to be recognized can go a long, long way. Maurice Wigfall, good morning, my brother. Terrence Collins, good morning, my brother. Appreciate y'all. So Colonel Paris, he was a commanding officer. He also, this is what it says. Davis's commanding officer recommended him for the military's top honor, but the paperwork disappeared. He eventually was awarded the Silver Star Medal, the military's third highest combat medal, as an interim honor. But members of Davis's team have argued that his skin color was a factor in the disappearance of his Medal of Honor recommendation. I believe, this is what someone said, I believe that someone purposely lost the paperwork. Ron Dice, a junior member of Davis's team in Bong Son, told the AP in a separate interview. Dice, now 79, helped compile the recommendation that was submitted in 2016. He said he knew Davis had been recommended for the Medal of Honor shortly after the battle in 1965, and he spent years wondering why Colonel Davis hadn't been awarded the medal. 9 years ago, he learned that a second nomination had been submitted, and that also was somehow, quote, lost. But I don't believe they were lost, Dice said. I believe they were intentionally discarded. They were discarded because he was black, and that's the only conclusion that I can come to. Army officials say there's no evidence of racism in Davis's case. And they went on to say, we're here to celebrate the fact that he got the award long time coming. Major General Patrick Roberson, Deputy Commanding General, U.S. Army Special Operations Command, told the AP, we the Army, we haven't been able to see anything that would say, hey, this is racism. We can't know that. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And yesterday, Colonel Paris Davis, for everything he did during that battle in Vietnam, where he saved his members, his troops as a captain, is finally recognized with the Medal of Honor. Long time coming, well overdue, but he finally got his recognition. Congrats to Colonel Paris. Now, this next one that I want to touch on goes along with the same lines of Colonel Paris. And we're still fighting for this one. And you see how long it took for Colonel Paris to get his recognition. You know, when I report these things, it just, y'all bear with me. It goes along the same lines of Colonel Paris. And this article says House Democrats reintroduce GI Bill to help Black veterans and descendants receive overdue benefits. Overdue benefits. And this picture here, this picture I'm posting right here, is a picture of the 369th Infantry Regiment, who overcame unimaginable discrimination and neglect to earn their infamous nickname, the Harlem Hellfighters, and become one of the most decorated units of World War I. I want you to remember that. These guys, these men, I'm not going to say these guys, these men, these military members belong to the Harlem Hellfighters, and they became one of the most decorated units of World War I. And I want to bring this up, and I wanted to show this picture. Because what these men did in World War I, and then to come back and not be able to receive the benefits of the people of non-color came back is an issue. It's a problem, and we're still fighting for it. And this is the article says. The GI Bill Restoration Act is probably the only shot we have of some kind of race-specific reparations in this country, said Richard Brookshire, co-founder and CEO of the Black Veterans Project. And it says Black World War II veterans and their descendants have yet to receive their overdue GI Bill benefits. However, some House Democrats hope to change that. On February 28th, House Reps James Clyburn and Seth Moulton reintroduced the Sergeant Isaac Woodward Jr. and Sergeant Joseph H. Maddox GI Bill Restoration Act in an effort to seek justice for veterans and their descendants who are owed numerous benefits. Richard Brookshire, co-founder and CEO of the Black Veterans Project, told the Grill that the GI Bill might have to overcome some challenges before being signed into law. And it says, I honestly feel that the GI Bill Restoration Act is fantastic, but I also know the political feasibility of that is very slim, he stated. He continued, in most respects, because of the cost and then because there seems to be some level of disagreement about whether or not passing a piece of targeted racial policy like that would withstand judicial review. In 1944, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the GI Bill into law to assist qualifying veterans and their family members with paying for higher education training programs and other benefits. According to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs website, yet many Black veterans did not receive any benefits after putting their life on the line for the United States. And this was signed back in 1944 for all veterans. But many of the Black veterans didn't receive any of the benefits that this GI Bill was signed into law for. Representative Barbara Lee, who recently spoke with the Griot, called it a disgrace. These Black veterans who served their country, who died, whose families are still trying to recoup, and they can't even get the benefits from what they deserved only because they were Black. It's a shame and it's a disgrace. The latest measure was named after veterans Woodward and Maddox to honor the two Black sergeants who faced discrimination in the U.S. after serving in World War II. On February 12, 1946, just hours after being honorably discharged from the United States Army, a South Carolina police officer violently assaulted 26-year-old Woodward and left him permanently blind. President Harry Truman was so horrified by the ordeal that on June 26, 1948, he issued an executive order to desegregate the armed forces. According to a press release from Clyburn's office, Maddox was medically discharged from the Army after sustaining an injury. Upon his return to the U.S., he was accepted into Harvard University. However, he was denied tuition assistance. The NAACP and Veteran Affairs advocated for old Maddox's behalf to ensure justice was served. So let me get this right, because I want to go back and rehash some of this. You had men of color, people of color, they went and fought in World War II. And these guys are these gentlemen, these men are from World War I. I don't know why that gets them. But this is based on World War II veterans, Black African American veterans, who didn't receive the benefits they should have received when they came back, in spite of the law being written into place by President Harry Truman. I mean, by Franklin Roosevelt. I'm sorry, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Harry Truman did the other thing about desegregating. But what I want to get to is the fact of you had one member, military member, who came back. But after being honorably discharged from the United States Army, a South Carolina police officer violently assaulted a 26-year-old Woodward and left him permanently blind. He went and served his country, honorably discharged, served honorably everything, and then a South Carolina police officer beat him to the point of he was blind. Medically discharged was Mr. Maddox. Woodward was the one who was beaten till he was blind. Mr. Maddox is the one who got accepted into Harvard University and he couldn't get any benefits. While his white counterparts were able to get all the benefits that were allowed to them, but only because Mr. Woodward, Mr. Maddox were Black, they couldn't get anything that their counterparts, who they fought in the same war with, could not get. And I bring all this up today. I bring this up because this Restoration Act that they're talking about that they don't think is going to pass. Why? Why would you not want to correct a wrong? Why is it continually pushback on correcting a wrong that is done to a people, or it has been done to a people, in spite of the fact that they served this country honorably during a war? I'm not sure if a lot of people truly understand the impact of coming back from doing something, seeing the things you see, following the orders of the people that are over top of you to go and put your life on the line, and then to come back to a country and expect, I'm not going to say ask for, but expect to receive the same benefits that those who also fought that don't look like you, that may not have the same melanin content as you, but you expect to get the same rights and the same freedoms and the same benefits that they receive. And every time you go to get those benefits that you know other people are getting, the other people that don't look like you're getting, there's a roadblock. There's a roadblock. We go everything from redlining. You still had to drink out of a different water fountain. You couldn't eat at certain restaurants. Certain places you had to use the back door rather than the front door. You had to sit in the back of the bus. You had to do all these things because you didn't look a certain way. But you wore the same uniform. You fought the same war. You put your life on the line just like those other folks. And you don't have the right in this country that you defended for the education, the medical, the housing, just the simple fact of to be able to walk down the street freely for a country you just went and put your life on the line to defend. See, when a lot of people sit back and you hear these politicians, or you hear these white nationalists, or you hear these white supremacists, or anybody you can think about, and they give you this mindset and this understanding or this thought process that people of color are not worthy of the same benefits of people of non-color in this country. Most of those people most of those people who speak that way, who have these thoughts, who feel this way, have never even made a sacrifice for the country that they're telling you and telling these men that they have no rights to, the benefits that should be bestowed upon them. That's where the issue comes in for me, is when you have people who have done nothing to defend this country except receive their privilege, which they feel is a right, and they feel that they're better than these men here who fought World War I, the ones who came back from World War II who couldn't get benefits, Colonel Paris, who had to wait years and years and years to be recognized for saving lives of service members that were working and serving under him. But they don't have the right to get the benefits because of their melanin content. However, you do because of your lack of melanin content and your privilege and the mindset and the lack of equality, the lack of justice in this country at the time, and still in some pockets today. April Weekend, good morning. Appreciate you. You know, there's many, many, many of our brothers who have served this country proudly. Some didn't make it off the battlefield, but never received the recognition, never received a thank you, never received the benefits, never received anything for their sacrifice. And with my generation that came through, we stand on their shoulders. We stand on their shoulders because we're able to get those benefits. We're able to get the recognition. We're able, and there's pockets of people who choose not to recognize you because of who you are and everything. Let's not sugarcoat it. However, the outright racism or the lack of doing these things is recognized now and it's seen. Still some slide through the cracks. But we all stand on the shoulders of these men. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korean War, Vietnam War, Persian Gulf War, all of it. Next time you run into or you see a veteran like Colonel Paris or a veteran like these men that served in any of those wars before we even thought about joining the military or understood what the military was, tell them thank you. Not only were they fighting a war overseas, they had to come back and fight a war here on this soil. Land of the free, home of the brave. And they had to come back and fight another war. Let's take this in a new route. All right, let's get into this. So this week, there's been a lot in the news where people have just said and done whatever they want to do. And a lot of it gears around, and you know, a lot of it gears around the lack of understanding that, you know, we may look different, We may act different, we may grow up different, but we're all the same. As you hear me say on here, we bleed the same, we breathe the same, all those different things we can think about. The only difference is the melanin content in our body. But there's some people out here in this world, in this United States of America, that are just ignorant. I'm just gonna say what they're just ignorant. And we have to receive it as such, ignorance. First, let me start with, and I didn't print that one out because I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. But there's a guy, and I think his name is Adam Scott. He does the Dilbert comic strip or something like that. And he went on his live. He has a live that again. I went back and I watched it to see what context he was talking about. But in the context of what he was talking about, he said that black and white people cannot live together. I'm paraphrasing here, so y'all correct me. I don't want to say nothing wrong, but I'm just telling you what he said. He said black folks and white folks can't live together. Black folks are racist towards white people. He said all this, and then somewhere in there, he even said that that's why he made the decision to move into a majority white neighborhood. And he told the people, one of the things he said that really jumped out was that he told them, just get away. Just get away. Get away from black people, move away from black people. That's your only cure, is to move away from black people. And then he came back after he said all that because there was an uproar and they canceled his comic strip and all this kind of stuff that they are not going to publish it in the Washington Post, New York Times, and all these different things. Then he came back to apologize. But his apology was apologizing for the fact of he was doing and saying what he said off of a poll that was taken about is it okay to be white or something to that extent. I don't know all the details, but all I'll say about this is this right here. Those are the type of people, and he made it a point to say that he has, black friends. But those are the type of people that, and I don't want to generalize everybody, but when you hear things like that, it makes you really wonder if you say that I'm your friend. You may be white, I'm black, but you say I'm your friend. But you have this idea that because I'm your friend, I'm different than any of the other black folks that you may see. Or you treat me differently than all the other black folks because you say I'm your friend. But you don't know those people that you don't call your friend, but you stereotype them into a category of something that you've known for a long period of time. And then I have to question, if you don't know those people and you don't care about those people, what makes me so different that you call me a friend? Because I look like those same people you're talking about. I've never understood this mentality where, people will say, well, black folks don't like white people. Well, I've never heard too many people come out and say that. I've heard them say that they don't like certain actions and certain things that are being done. I've never heard this blanket statement of I hate all white people or I have a white friend or anything like that. I just don't get it. When you ever get just tired? Have you ever just been tired and exhausted? And I'm gonna say this, and some people will say, well, if you're tired and exhausted, stop talking about it. But I'm not tired and exhausted about talking about it. I'm not tired and exhausted about exposing it. I'm not tired and exhausted about highlighting it so people can understand exactly what's going on around them on a daily basis when they say phrases like make America great again and what that meant in the past and all these different things of, and I wish I would have pulled up the video because Bryan Cranston, the actor, and I'm going off a little bit here, but the actor was on with Bill Maher. And they were talking about that phrase, and he told Bob Cranston told Bill Maher, what does make America great again mean? Do you know what that meant back then? He said, when has America been great for black folks? He said, because if you look through history, America has never been great for black folks. So if you're saying make America great again, are you saying that in excluding black folks? Because it was never great for black folks. And I had to sit and listen to it, and it really made a lot of sense what he was saying. We all may not agree, and we may all not want to go back and rehash what's happened in the past in this country. But you can't just sugarcoat it when people come out with these phrases and not read into what is being said. Case in point, a state lawmaker has apologized for suggesting Tennessee bring back lynching. And he didn't say it that way, but you know what he meant. State Rep Paul Sherrill made the controversial comments Tuesday during a House Criminal Justice Committee discussion on HB 1245, a bill proposed to implement death by electrocution. Basically, what he said in the thing was someone brought up the bill. They were talking about being in front of a firing squad. You remember they were talking about this. I talked about this a while ago, where they were saying that they were going to bring back firing squads as an option for the death penalty, for putting people to death if they committed the crime and everything like that. So they were talking about this as far as the firing squad, and then he chimed in and says, "Well, you know, I'm going to sign off on the firing squad part of it, but can we add hanging from a tree in there? Can we add that in there? Hanging from a tree," which in everybody's mind said they already know that means lynching. And the mindset. And then he came back after there was an uproar, as usual, and he apologized for what he claims was an exaggeration while trying to convey support for a colleague looking to add death by firing squad as an execution method for death row inmates. What does a firing squad have to do with hanging from a tree? State Rep Paul Sherrill made the controversial lynching comments Tuesday during a House Criminal Justice Committee discussion. Representative Dennis Powers first proposed the bill, currently being amended to provide a different means of execution, to implement death by electrocution. The amendment would allow firing squads to be added to the Tennessee death row protocol. Revisions the state sought in response to an independent study that exposed shortcomings in how the Tennessee Department of Corrections has carried out lethal injections. And Cheryl said, "I think it's a very good idea of the firing squad method. And I was just wondering, could I put an amendment on that would include hanging by a tree also?" That's kind of how it sounded because I watched the video. Gloria Sweet Love, which is her name, head of the Tennessee State Conference of the NAACP, deemed Cheryl's comment beyond disgusting. He is celebrating a particular form of execution used against African Americans in Tennessee and across the nation, including innocent and wrongfully convicted persons. Sweet Love went in more detail, adding that lynchings occurred in nearly every county in many southern states as an example of racialized and anti-Black brutality. We know from numerous research studies that Blacks are also disproportionately executed. She added, especially when the alleged victim is white. In a statement issued on his behalf Wednesday by the press secretary for the House Republican Caucus, Representative Sherrill apologized for using what he called very poor judgment in endorsing his colleague's measure. He also asserted his motive was to support families who frequently wait decades for justice. I watched this, and I watched the video a couple of times just so I could get the context of what was going on. But what struck me was not what he said, not the fact that he came back and apologized after the fact, but the fact that he sat up here with all these other politicians in this room when this was being talked about. He said this about lynching, hanging from a tree, and you can hear a mouse pissing on cotton. That means silence, if you understand what I'm saying. There was no one in that chamber who felt that what he said was out of line. There was nobody in that chamber that stood up to say, wait a minute now. Think we're going a little bit too far with the hanging from the tree. We can stick to the fact that we're talking about the firing squads and because of lethal injections or whatever, but the hanging from a tree, that's a little bit too far. Nobody in that chamber where they were debating this or talking about doing this spoke up to say or correct him about what he was saying. Why? Come on, y'all. Silence sometimes is a stamp of approval. In some cases, your silence speaks loudly. So I'm not just upset with Mr. Sheriff or Representative Sheriff. I'm upset with everybody that was in that chamber that was voting on this or talking about this and chose not to correct him on the spot. Your silence speaks loudly. Now, can somebody else say, well, maybe they were in shock that he said it. You speak up about anything else. You speak up about anything else. Speak up about that. I Then we had another thing going on. A proposed South Carolina bill could make abortion a death penalty eligible offense. Several elected officials in South Carolina will receive major pay raises. Oh, that's something else. I'm sorry. Y'all excuse me. I went off on a different one. South Carolina legislators are hearing a bill that will make abortion punishable by death. Now, I don't care how you feel about abortion rights, anti-abortion, pro-choice, however you may feel. Whichever route you may look at, whichever route you may go, how you truly feel about any of this. Sharice Joseph, good morning. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Anything you may think about abortion. But the South Carolina legislators are hearing a bill that will make abortion punishable by death. And it says this: abortion is currently legal in South Carolina, as the state Supreme Court has vetoed all proposed legislation to restrict abortions within the state. The court's 3-2 decision allows abortion to remain legal in the state until 20 weeks of pregnancy. The new bill, South Carolina Prenatal Equal Protection Act of 2023, was pre-filed on December 15th of 2022. Following the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, Republican leaders have been hoping to reinstate a pre-Roe ban on almost all abortions at 6 weeks of pregnancy. The bill seeks to amend the state constitution to recognize life as an individual person from the moment of fertilization and to define person to include an unborn child at any stage of development. In altering the definition of person in the Palmetto State, the bill says that an unborn child who is assaulted or a victim of homicide will receive equal protection under assault laws of the state. Dozens of lawmakers have sponsored the bill. According to South Carolina's Code of Laws, a person who is convicted of or pleads guilty to murder must be punished by death or by a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment for 30 years to life. If passed under the bill, women receiving abortions could face the death penalty. Now, I want you to think about this, because we talk about this all the time when we bring up the abortion factor. Nothing in this bill that they're proposing of if you have an abortion that you could face the death penalty. But if you notice when I read this, and I've looked at some other things in here to see, but there's nothing in here that talks about any exceptions. Rape, incest, the ones we consistently hear about. The health of the mother, if she carried the child to term, all the different things in the exceptions and the categories you can think about are not even mentioned in this. The only thing that's mentioned is they are going to look at an abortion as murder in this bill. No exceptions to the rule. Cut and dry. One size fits all. Now, you feel how you want. I'm pro-choice. I don't have no problem saying it. You should be able to choose what you do with you. But at the same time, we have to be smart about these things as well. Some of these decisions have to be thought through thoroughly. There's many decisions that we make in life that are, we jump, make a decision, and then later on we regret the decision we made because it wasn't the best decision for us long term. It was the best decision short term. That's all I'm saying. But it's still a decision that a woman should be able to make for herself. It's just my thought. Keep an eye on this. I'll keep an eye on it. South Carolina bill could make abortion a death penalty eligible offense. No exceptions. None. None at all. For all you out there, I'm transitioning. So y'all. For all you out there, or if you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. During the pandemic and decided to get a PPP loan, knowing that you should have been getting a PPP loan. You ain't got no business, you ain't got no employees, you ain't got all the parameters that you skirted, or you had somebody do the paperwork up who knew how to do it to the system and all that type stuff. Well, you better be wary. Be wary. Be wary. Wary. Be aware. President Joe Biden released a proposal to crack down on widespread pandemic relief fraud, totaling billions of dollars, targeting thieves who stole crucial Paycheck Protection Program loans from businesses struggling to stay afloat during the shutdown. The president has asked Congress to help with these efforts, even though the House has already kicked off investigations of its own. Billions of American taxpayer dollars have been squandered, and the nation has seen its highest levels of identity theft ever due to pandemic loan abuse. The three-part proposal asks for $600 million to investigate and prosecute. $600 million to investigate and prosecute the criminals who preyed on people by tripling the COVID-19 fraud strike force teams under the DOJ and increasing the statute of limitation to 10 years for serious systemic pandemic fraud. In addition, the plan will invest $600 million in prevention programs and $400 million to flag and stop potentially fraudulent transactions before they occur, as well as better report crimes on identitytheft.gov. President Biden asked Congress to send him legislation on this issue that House Republicans held a hearing on a month ago, hoping for bipartisan support on Capitol Hill. A government watchdog group recently found $5.4 billion in federal COVID-19 aid might have gone to businesses tied to questionable social security numbers. Now, I don't have a problem with this, going and finding out who got the loans, who was supposed to have the loans. If you weren't supposed to have the loan, you might have consequences and everything like that. But only thing I have a problem with is to make sure that they're doing it to everybody. Not just the little people down here, all the people up here that got these PPP loans. And I want to throw some names out there. And from what I remember, Donald Trump got PPP loans for his business. I think Pelosi got PPP loans for her proposed business. A lot of people up there in Congress and Senate, a lot of politicians got loans during this time. And one of them that I seen that I did see that jumped out at me says Marjorie Taylor Greene got $180,000 in business loans forgiven from the PPP program. But in the same breath, she said it's completely unfair for us to forgive student loans for working and middle-class Americans. So she got $180,000 for a PPP loan. But those out here that President Biden's trying to pass this bill to, help with student loans, she said, no, we shouldn't do that. But she had no problem taking $180,000. My question is, what'd you need $180,000 for? You had a business, but now that business is gone, from what I was told, because she got divorced. Or was that Bobert? One of them. But I'm saying this to say, and the only reason I brought her up is because, they had an article about it. But there's a lot of people that some of you know. Some people I know. Some people we all know They got a lot of money during the pandemic for PPP loans to take care of their employees, because there wasn't a lot of work going on and everything like that. And the chickens have come home to roost once they put this in play. They've already caught some people. They've already prosecuted some people. But they haven't even scratched the surface on all the people that got these PPP loans. I had somebody tell me, go get a PPP loan for this show. Somebody said, man, put in a PPP loan. You can get it for your show. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. I am not going to jail for fraud. I just can't. No. And I don't need no money for the show. I've been doing it myself all this time. Why am I going to take advantage of something just because COVID-19 has shut the city down or whatnot? Just can't see it. So if you know somebody who knows somebody, tell them get the paperwork together. Because they coming. As Deion Sanders said up there in Colorado, we coming. We coming. Oh boy, I tell you. And like I said, my biggest thing is I hope that what they do is they make sure that they're doing this standard across the board. Not just certain people, standard across the board for anybody and everybody who did what they shouldn't have done with the PPP loan. Let's go on and get into this. Mind, body, and soul, year 2023. This is all about it being you. It's being a better you, finding who you are, searching for who you are, and being better than who you were. That's what we're doing in 2023. Today's quote, very simple. It piggybacks on some of the things we always talk about on this show. But today's quote says this: what defines us is how we, hold on, let me start again because I just lost my vision. What defines us is how well we rise after we fall. What defines us is how well we rise after we fall. What comes to mind when I see this quote is, you remember when you had a child, newborn, and you were waiting for them to take those first steps. And even in spite of those first, and you did it too as a child, and in spite of those first steps, they fail. Struggle to get back up, with that heavy pamper on and everything, but they bow-legged, whatever they got going on. In spite of the fact that they fail, they push to get themselves back up. And while all this was going on, they failed, they got up, they failed, they take about 2 steps, they fall down again. And all the things you can think about of a child trying to walk, take those first steps. And they fall down, but they get up. They fall down, they get up. You may help them up, but you get up. I want you to think about how much praise and how much admiration and how much encouragement you gave that child that was taking its first steps, learning how to walk. Now, I want you to take that and look at how we do people who fall now. When we see people fall down on their luck, when we see people going through things, when we see people that may be going through a rough patch in life, why don't we use that same encouragement, that same motivation, that same emphasis, and that same coaching with them as we did with the child? See, we all struggle. We all struggle. We all fall down. We all get up. We fall down. We get up. We fall down. We get up. But sometimes you need to hear from somebody that it's going to be all right. We need to hear from somebody, get up. Get up. Keep pushing. Or somebody to reach that hand out like you did with that child to give them that balance. I think sometimes we look at it where as a child, we needed that encouragement. We needed that push. We needed that encouragement to be able to take that step and keep on pushing because we were just learning to walk. But if you really think about life, each day we're learning to live. And each day we're going to take stumbles, whether it's at your job, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's just you in your mind, you're going to stumble. But we all want something, somebody somewhere to encourage us to get up, to keep pushing, to keep walking, to keep going forward in spite of. We all fall sometimes. We all get up. We fall. We get up. But think of how easy and how motivated you would be to continue to get up when you fall. If you just heard one voice from somebody to say, come on, man. Come on. Push through. Push through. See that light down there? That's where you need to get to. Focus on that, not the falling, not the getting up. Focus on where you're trying to get to. Because as children, our main focus was from that one parent that was holding you up for you to take that first step. Your main focus was to get to that other parent on the other side. No matter how many times you fail, no matter how many times you got up, you heard that encouragement. You may not have understood it at the time, but you knew that somebody was waiting on you over there, and that's where you needed to get to. We need to do that for each other in this life. We need to do that to each other, for each other, every day. Encourage each other to get up. Encourage each other to keep pushing. Encourage each other, no matter how many times you fall down, get up. And if you see them falling, whether it be a relationship went bad, whether they lost a job, whether they have a financial problem, no matter what issue they may be going through, just those words of encouragement, can help somebody get up and keep on pushing. What we do in a lot of cases, when we see somebody down, we do everything to keep them down. And it's not done consciously at times, but we'll talk about what they're going through. We'll judge what they've been through. And rather than encouraging that person, our encouragement comes by talking to somebody else about what that person's going through and encouraging this other person to take that story and run with it to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. When all that energy about talking about that person could have been poured into that person, so they know that there's somebody there to help them get up, encourage them to get up. And that each and every day that you fall, the more you get up, the more success you'll have. The closer you get to what your destination is. Encourage people. Stop tearing them down. What defines us is how well we rise after falling. And we don't always fall and decide to stay there. But we also need that encouragement when we get up for somebody to say, I knew you could do it. Now keep on pushing. Keep on pushing. It's a mental thing. Sometimes we all need the recognition, as I mentioned before. We need the encouragement. We need somebody, and we need to know that somebody is invested in our success just as much as we are. Keep pouring into people. Stop taking from them. Stop taking from them. Let's go ahead and wrap this up for the day. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Another show, another Saturday. I'll be back again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. I appreciate everybody tuning in. As I always say, I love y'all. Just like we said last time, I love you. That's what we're going with this year as well. I love you. Don't be afraid to say it, but make sure you're saying it in the context of what you mean and not what the other person needs to hear. I love you. And we'll be back again next week. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely, keep your faith in God. And I'm out, and I'll holler at you next week. Peace.